What is up, guys? My name is Bharat, and I'm going to be starting this session today. Let's wait for a few more people to join so we know for sure that, yeah. Let me quickly check if my audio is fine. Test 1, 2, 3. All right, great. My audio looks fine. Awesome. Hi, Sumit. How's it going? Thanks for joining the stream again today. Great to have repeat audiences, and it's obviously great that you guys are showing interest towards this framework and you want to learn something new. I'm particularly very excited for a couple of reasons, because today, like I said in yesterday's session, we're going to be looking into Firebase, primarily looking into understanding Firebase and how you want to connect your Flutter application with Firebase, and it's a very interesting topic. On top of that, you'll also be able to create this full stack experience, wherein it's pretty much straightforward to connect your Flutter application to like a database in the backend and things like that. So that's going to be the whole idea for this session. So let me quickly share my screen and we'll get started. Let's give it another 1 to 2 minutes time so people can join as well, and possibly after that we'll get started, because for this session, like I said, we're going to be primarily looking into Firebase, how to set up your Flutter application to work with Firebase, and post that you're going to be doing some actions like create, then you'll read your Firebase data, then you'll read your database data. All of that are going to be part of this session. So it'll probably be running for another 1 hour. So you guys can join and understand how this works. Okay, this is here. Awesome. Okay, everything looks fine. I'll share my screen now. Great. So for the functional Flutter apps part 3, we have been seeing two new parts have been completed. For the first part, we learned how to set up our application, what is Flutter and how you set up your Flutter application and how you connect it with Android, and how all things related to Android work. The second session was primarily targeted around learning in depth into what Flutter is and how you can create and navigate between Flutter applications and navigate between screens in Flutter and things like that. And that's what we learned. For the third part, I'm going to be like going a little bit in depth and even little bit talk more about how you connect your Flutter application with something called as Firebase. So I'll share my screen and yep. So we're going to be looking into something called as Firebase, and it's basically another Google product, that's very useful in order to do a lot of functions. Primarily, you can develop iOS applications, Android applications, web apps, and on top of that, Firebase is basically the Google's cloud software. Similarly, how Microsoft has Azure, Amazon has AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, and Google has its Firebase. Firebase provides a range of functionalities, starting from real-time DB storage. You can have cloud storage, and you can even have machine learning models running on the cloud, and authorization is possible. You can run analytics on it. You can get all of these data as part of Firebase. So it's a very cool kind of an online software, or I should say online service. And I'll just show a sample as to what or how Firebase looks like. So this is my console. I do a lot of Firebase related applications and things like that. You can see that I have close to, I don't know, multiple Firebase information right here, and this is one of my this is where you're going to be learning on how to create a project and how we can integrate that with our Flutter application. So this is going to be the topic for today, and you can see that I create and test out bunch of apps before I push it to prod. And yeah, I do a lot of things ranging from machine learning vision. This is something related to Kiwi that we did recently in my channel. You can check it if you're interested. And Firebase sample projects, and multiple things can be done. I'll show you guys how that works. So I actually created a sample Firebase to show you guys how things are going to look like. And you can see that there are a bunch of things on the left side. It provides you storing, it provides you hosting functions, and functions basically for creating one-time functions that can be run multiple times as to whenever you call it. And machine learning is also possible, and it's amazing. And one more important and interesting thing with this is that just like all the popular networks or popular companies, you'll find that it's actually a free plan. Free, just it has its own catch, but if you get to start with, if you want to learn how this works and things like that, it's actually a free plan. It's $0 per month. Hopefully, you guys can see this. Yeah, it's, as you can see, it's a $0 per month, and it'll run for free for a very long time, until you have about 10,000 users. Until your application grows to that size, you can access all of these things for free, and that's why it's an amazing kind of an platform. Is this the only way to do it? No, you can even run your own AWS server. You can run your AWS service and connect it with Flutter. You can run your Microsoft Azure. You can create your own real-time database there and connect it with Azure. But what happens is that since Firebase being a Google product and Flutter is also a Google product, they have this seamless connectivity where nothing is complex, and you can just easily set up your application in about 5 minutes time. And that's what is very interesting about this. All right, so I'm going to be talking about this in particular and how you can get to this screen. So we just get started, because I just, even before we get started, I'll show you guys what we have done so far in the basically all the last two sessions, so you'll have understanding of what is possible from here on. Right, so let me run this application. This is my emulator, and this is the code that we have run so far. So I'll run it, and you will guys see. Right, any questions so far? So Sumit, yes. So when you ask me, is it possible to create chat applications as Firebase as backend? Definitely, that's one of the functionalities. You can even have your own security with respect to Firebase. You can authorize connectivity basically, like you can authorize a user. All of that is possible with Firebase. All you need to do is just understand what are the different functionality they provide, and have basically plugins to connect with it, and you will be able to create any apps that you want. And it's definitely possible. You can create a chat application, like you have mentioned. What error does it show, Sakshi? Like exactly what is the error that it's showing? Unable to locate ADB should not be a problem. If you see that it should open up your ADB in no time. So for example, I have my AVD manager here, and if you click on this button, it'll throw the same issue as for me as well. You need to provide the ADB location exactly to the basically you need to provide it in the preferences. So that's where the emulator is going to get picked up. I don't really recommend running things on emulator. If you have a local device or local phone in your hand, just connect with it and try to like work with it, and that makes it super easier compared to running it on an emulator. I'm running it on an emulator primarily because I don't have an extra phone lying around. So if you have an extra phone or Android phone, just connect with it and enable your developer option, and it'll run even faster than your emulator. So that's also one thing that I want to really add here. And there are a bunch of problems that might happen with emulator, and I do understand that. It's not always recommended to like spend so much some time just setting up your emulator. Depending on your OS, it's depending on your OS, your processor, your RAM, high chances are that it's not working because of any one of those reasons as well. So maybe I would definitely recommend using a local phone or like a simple Android phone. If you don't have that, then probably you can just check. Basically, if you got to like Google and debug, and that's something like very very boring part of setting up an emulator. So if you can like expand on your problems, and you can take this offline and try to fix it for you, um, but not on this live session. Okay, why is this so slow? Okay, so this is the app that you've built so far. It's a very simple application. I guarantee that it's not something amazing, but what happens is that when you click on the submit button, it takes you to the next screen. This is navigating to the next screen, and it shows you a new data on the next screen. And this is pretty much what we have done so far in this the last two sessions. And what I'm going to do now is to, instead of just submitting button here, I'm going to remove all these data like assignment number, student number, date of birth. I'm going to get it as an input from the user itself and try to store it on a cloud side database. So we're going to be running our own database on a cloud, and we're going to be trying to put it there. Let's, so even before we begin, so I use a very basic emulator actually. So this is something like I'm using, as you can see here. I don't know if this is legible enough. So I'm using a WVGA Nexus 1, which is a very basic emulator, and also I'm running it on Mac with about 10 GB of RAM, 10 GB of disk space. So that's why it's running pretty fine. It depends on a lot of problems. I mean, it depends on a lot of things. I'll quickly try to show you how I'm setting up my emulator. I'll just create a virtual device, and I'll try to find the smallest one. Basically, my resolution, I don't even mind. I'll try to find the smallest one. I've set it as 3.7, so probably I'll be finding this one right here. So this is going to be my emulator, and I'll be using this as my testing one. This is just for showing you guys how this works. That's why I said you should have your own local phone setup, and that will make it super easy because you are testing it real time. If you don't have, if you try to run any of the bigger ones like 5.5 or 3 XL, you would need to have a better system with better RAM, better processor, and better graphics card, so that it is able to handle the load. Right now, my system is still making so much noise, but that's how it is, and it is working pretty fine. So I don't have any complaints. All right, so let's get moving on. I'm going to be, like I said, trying to get all of this data in the form of information from the user itself, and then try to, when I submit this button, I wanted to upload it or update it in a real-time database on the cloud. So even before we begin, let's get some answers from you guys. Like, how many of you are really do you really understand the concept of cloud and how the cloud databases work? Because if you guys do not understand about that, I can make a quick note of it and try to give you guys understanding. So what is exactly is a cloud database, and how is it different from a local DB? So how different is it? And if you guys have any suggestions or if you have any doubts, you can ask me right now, or else we can move on. Okay, so basically, right, I'll give you a basic example of what a local DB is and what a cloud DB is. A local DB is going to be something that is going to reside on the phone itself. If you have a simple app like a cricket score tracker, or if you have something like a calculator app or something like that, that requires some kind of a local storage of information, it will make use of the phone's SD card itself and store the data there. So it's going to be like a local DB that is going to be created by the application, and it's going to store it locally. So what this will do is this will increase the size of the app. It will also increase the size of your device. It'll reduce the empty sizes of the device, and it'll keep on adding more data locally. This way, if you create a simple application to like store 10 data to your local DB, you will probably be you'll probably looking at a size of about 30 to 40 MB for just a simple application. Now what this does is that it gives speed. No, this has some disadvantages for sure, like size is increased, and it's also going to occupy a lot of local data space inside your phone. If you have a 128 GB phone and your application itself is storing 1 GB of data, that's not recommended, right? And this is something called as a local DB. So let's say that what this also gives in turn is that it increases the speed of transaction, meaning that you want to quickly understand when was the last time that the user logged on to your application or logged on to your app. What you will do is you'll create a simple table, basically a MySQL table or some kind of a simple table, and put it inside the database saying that last logged in time. You will just have this field of last logged in time, and you will be able to understand when the last time the user logged in. So this will give increased speed of communication or execution. So your application will quickly get the data from your local storage, and it will able to do it. It will also help in personalizing your application. So if you open your, for example, your Facebook, and you want to quickly see what was the last 10 posts that you clicked on to, or let's say that you want to personalize your application to the maximum. When you want to personalize your application, you will probably be looking to have some kind of a local DB, because it might change for every user, right? So you're trying to have a local DB on that user's phone, and that way you're personalizing it. So if there is going to be a specific user action, you will try to use a local DB. And if you want to do something on the cloud, meaning that you want to reduce the size of the application, you want to reduce the size of the DB itself, and there isn't much of things that you can do by having a local DB. You will move it to something called as a cloud database. Now, cloud databases run behind a server. You will have a simple front-end application that's going to communicate with the server, and it will give instructions like read the data or save the data or like delete the data, and just like all these three functions are going to be called. So your front end here will just call the server endpoint, and it will tell the server to like fetch the data from this for this user from this DB. And once that information is passed on to the server will take some time, do the execution, and send the data back to the front end. So this has its own advantages, like reducing the size, reducing the DB size also, and even reducing some information on the local storage. But also this will have an increased time, meaning that it will take at least 200 to 400 millisecond for communication. So if you have something that is not time critical, if you want something to just happen in the background, you'll primarily use a cloud data storage and put all your data in that space. Nowadays, most of the people are switching to cloud storage only. There is nothing that is happening on the local DB at all. Very, very, very little things are happening on the local database. Most of the things are primarily now moved to the cloud databases. So basically, cloud databases are the same databases, rather they are going to be residing behind a server, and local databases are going to reside on the phone or your laptop or locally where the application is going to be running. So that's the major difference between these two. All right, time to look at our Firebase, and we're going to be doing some kind of a setup now where we're going to communicate our application to the Firebase project. So what do you do? Just first step you go is you go to your Firebase project. I'll open this up, and this is going to be the page. All right, I'll go to the Firebase, and you got to go something like, let me open it for you. You will say Firebase Google. All right. So as soon as you open it, it will be something like this. It will have this information. I've already logged in, so it's actually giving me this go to console. And even if you're logged in, you will get the same thing as well. So click on this go to console, and you will find that there will be bunch of empty projects. So these are projects that I've created so far and played around with it. But if you see that there will be just this one plus symbol. So click on this add project button, and it's time to enter our project name. And you can enter any project name, doesn't matter, as long as it's unique between the Firebase projects console. So I'm just going to enter something like I'll call it as assignment app Flutter. I usually add something like an O2 at the end, so that it's easier to remember what app you're creating. You're giving a name to the application. I'll call this an assignment to Flutter assignment 2. That's going to be the name of this application now. So all the project also. So this is going to be the application or the project that I've created. Next up you do is just to continue. And this is something very, very important. In the start, I told that Firebase provides a lot of services. Along with one of the important service it provides is analytics, and this is the way that the user is or the Google is also able to get a lot of information like your A/B testing, user segmentation, where is the user coming from, and who's going to, what is the behavior of the user. All of these are actually going to be free services that are going to be provided by Google. But for this test application, I'm not going to do any kind of an analytics part, so I'll just turn it off. If you have it turned on, it will take a lot of time for the project to create. So it's up to you guys. If you want to really play around with it, you can do it, but for now I have it turned off. And once you turn it off, I'm going to create the project, and it'll take probably like 20 to 30 seconds depending on your network connectivity to create the project. Let me wait for that to complete, and I'll show you guys what is the next step from here. Great. So the application or the project is completed. Once it's completed, just click continue, and you'll be taken on to this console of sorts. So it has your name, and it's having a Spark plan. So mostly if you start, or if you want to test out the Firebase, it will start with a simple Spark plan only. So you guys don't really have to worry about it. You can still look into what are the other plans that are available, like PS. You go and make sure to not click any of this, and even if you click this, you need to give your credit card and stuff. So just be careful if you really want to scale your application, probably having 100,000 users or 1 million users, and that time this might be very useful. Let's say next step you're going to do is to build it on, or connect an app. It says add an app, but I'm going to be adding an app of Android, not of iOS or the web. I'm going to be adding Android specifically. So click on this Android, and it'll take you to a screen that looks something like this. It's asking for your Android package name, and followed by your app nickname of sorts. So how do you find this from the app that you created? So if you guys are following me from the first Flutter app, a Flutter session, you'll know that we gave a name to the application. We just gave a Flutter, I think it was Flutter profile app or something like that. So even if you're not very sure, you can find it by going to Android, go to app, go to source, go to main, and you'll go to the Android XML. So this is where you're going to go to. Let me increase the font size so you guys can see it clearly. Appearance, right? Yeah, font size is 26. Hopefully you guys can see it much better now. All right, so this is where you go to Android, go to app, go to source, and inside source open the main, and you find a file called as Android XML. So click on this Android XML, and it'll take you to an Android project that is automatically created by Flutter. So there you can find the name of the application. The name of the application is the package, or the package name, which is actually com.example.flutter underscore profile underscore app, which is what we really want. So make sure to copy this. This is going to be the first step. Copy this up and go back to your this page where you're trying to register the application. And why this is important is that the Firebase app that we're creating, or Firebase project that we're creating, has to know who is communicating with it. Only if you register the application here, it will allow communication from this application. If you register it with some other package name, it will not allow real-time database, or it will not allow any of the storage functions, because it will understand that this app was never registered to this to this project, so it will not allow it. So if you want to make sure to get all the functionalities of Firebase, you need to first get the package name and paste it right here. Next is to give a nickname. It's up to you if you want to give a nickname. I'm just going to give it an assignment, or call it as assignment to, just for our purpose, or just for it says that it's actually optional. So then next step is to give a register app. But before that, I'll just quickly tell what this debug signing certificate SHA1 is. And this is very useful when you're releasing the application to the App Store. When you're releasing the application to the App Store, you'll do two important activities. One is to create an APK, and next is to sign the APK. So what does signing of an APK mean is that it is just telling to the Play Store that it is actually an authentic app. It was created by you, and it is actually going to have your signature on it, meaning to say say that this is I'm the developer who created it and things like that. So when you're trying to debug when you're trying to sign the application, you'll be creating an SHA-1 key, which is important, and you need to use that key and put it here and register application once again. Only if you do that, your production application will be able to communicate with your Firebase. So that is something that is happening when you're trying to release it. Probably you can think of it as a checklist for release. But for now, you just don't have to worry about anything. Just use your Android package name, put it, give it a nickname as up to you. And then next one is you don't necessarily have to find the SHA-1. There is a bunch of your laptop or your OS will have an SHA-1 functionality embedded. It's a simple utility that you'll run to generate an debug signing APK. So if it happens in the last step of release, so this is not something that you do right now. When you're trying to release the application to the Play Store or the App Store, that's when you're going to create a debug signed SHA-1 application. So during that time, you need to come back here and register. Nothing to do now. So like it says, it's optional. Even if you don't do it and you'll still register the application, it will work fine. So just your Android package name is enough. Register the app. It takes some time, and then it will create something called as a Google services.json file. And this JSON file is very important. This JSON file is going to be like a key for communication. If you don't have this JSON file present, yes, I'll definitely tell you later. Like I'll tell you in the part where I talk about releasing an APK to the App Store, or when I'll have a session separately planned around that. So once we build this entire APK out, or once we finish building this application, I'll show you how to create an APK file and even release it to the App Store. So that way you will have a complete understanding. During that time, I'll delve deeper into how to sign an APK and how to make sure to reduce the size of an APK and all of that. All right, so just download this google.services and find it in the folder. So I have it in the folder right here. I'll have to go open this, and this is, you got to be very careful on where you place it. So let's say this is your Android package. You need to take your Google services.json file and go to your Android app and put it inside. Okay, just be very careful. Let's say that moving is not possible when indexing is happening. So indexing is completed. Okay, it's completed. Go to Android, inside your app you put it, not inside anywhere else. It should be inside your app, not inside source, not inside Android app. And that's why you have your Google services.json. Simply open it. You will find bunch of information. Even if you know this information, nothing is going to happen. You will have your project number, you will have your project ID, storage bucket. Basically this is actually unique data that should not be shown to anybody. If you show it, they can actually mimic this entire thing and try to recreate it and use your or hack into your Firebase. So that's not something you should show, but I'm just showing it for the educational purposes. Okay, so let's move on. We have put the Google services.json, and the next step is to see what is being suggested. So in this next step, you just click on next, and it will say that you need to add a bunch of dependencies, and only if you add these dependencies, things are going to work. So first it says that go to project level build.gradle. So we need to go to project level build.gradle. How do you find the project level build.gradle? So if you take Android, go to as soon as you open Android, you will find the build.gradle. So this is going to be the project level build.gradle, and you need to check if the repository has Google in it, and we'll check it. The repository has Google in it. Yes, it does. And the next step, it says that dependencies have this line or this class path present, and it check in the dependencies. The dependencies does not have that line. So all I need to do is just copy this and come here, and I'm going to paste this. So make sure to do that. Specifically, you need to add these dependencies class paths so that your application builds. Okay, this is done. And all projects has repositories and Google should be present. Check it here. All projects has repositories and Google is also present inside it. So we are good to go. So this is done. This is done, already present. All you need to add is just this one line inside your dependencies column. Right, so this step is completed. Let's save it up and move to the next one. The next one, it says that in the app level Gradle, add the following plugins. So app level Gradle you'll find by clicking on the app, and there is a build.gradle inside. So double click it, and you will find that it is suggesting to add an plugin, that is this plugin. So it says first to check if com.android application is there. Is it there? Yes, it is there. And it is checking add this line. It's saying basically to add Google GMS, Google services. So I just copy it up and come here and add it in the end. Save this thing up and check in the next one that dependencies has the Firebase BOM. So you'll check if that is there. Dependencies has that. I don't think it has. There is nothing of that sort here. So come to the end and add it. So basically we have done is two things: add this dependency, and in the top you've added this plugin. So basically this is going to be the entire setup. Save this up, and we're going to be checking if our application is working fine. So once you have done that, time to close this whole thing. Just click on next, and it will say that you're all set and things like that. Continue to console. Now it's time for us to check if the application is connected to the real-time database right here. So how do we test that? Okay, now is the time you're going to understand how to create a database. We first need to create an empty database. So there's a couple of things here. One is a Firestore database, and next is a real-time database. We're primarily going to be using the real-time database for this class or this session because it's something very related to JSON file storage. Firestore database is a very new kind of a database that has increased functionalities like scaling, database centers and things like that, but it is also like an upgraded version of real time. So initially the real time database was only there. After that, Firestore came into picture. So let's not delve deeper. The setup is similar. The basic things are very similar, but for now we'll just create the real time database. So click on the real time database, and as soon as you click on it, it will ask for creating a new database. So it says that create a new database. So create a new database here, and doesn't matter what you give here, as long as that it works fine. So just use the United States itself and just go to the next step. And the next step, it's very important that you understand the difference between a logged mode and a test mode. And the logged mode basically says that not everybody can access my database, and since that is something that is true that we want it that way, but for test purposes we need to have it in the test mode. I'll tell you why that is required, because I was talking about signing an APK, releasing it to Play Store and all of that sort, right? Only when you're trying to do that, you will have your database in a locked mode. Until you don't have that in that fashion, or until you do that in that fashion, you can just test it out, test all your database out in test mode, and at any time in the future you can switch between a logged and a test mode. So don't have to necessarily matter. For this session or for this class, we're going to be just putting it in test mode, and as you can see, it says that the default security rules for test mode allows anyone with your database reference to view, edit, delete all data in the database for the next 30 days. So basically it's like a simple test mode to access the database and add things like that. Let's go click enable, and as soon as we finish enabling it, it'll open up or it'll create our database, right? Yeah, it's almost done. Awesome. So we have we have a real-time database created, and it's also added like a simple field, and basically it says null right here. So you can have anything that you want. You can check your rules once again. The rules are basically to either allow read, allow write, and the read is basically to have it as true all the time. And you can see, even check the backups, and you can even test the usage it here, how many people are using it, and that way it's also going to give you a good understanding of the analytics of it. Just check the billing period here. If you have multiple things happening and it just peaks out at more than 10,000 users, probably you will get billed almost instantly. So yeah. Alright, let's continue moving on. I have created the database. Now is the time to link our real-time database to the Flutter application. So go back to the Flutter right here, and we're going to be adding two important plugins for this. So yesterday I talked about how to add a Flutter plugin and how you can do that very easily. I'll reduce the size of the project right here. It's too big for me. Alright, this is much better. So in the project settings in the left, you have your Flutter profile app, and you'll have your pubspec.yaml. Go to your pubspec.yaml, and inside this, this is where you're going to add dependencies, right? And I talked about adding an HTTP dependency. But for this session, I'm going to be introducing two new dependencies. One is called as Firebase Core, and the next is called as Firebase Database. So these are the two important dependencies that's going to be defining how you create and communicate with your Firebase. So Firebase core is obviously very, very, very important. Without your Firebase core, you cannot do anything. And the Firebase database to just activate or access this real-time database. And if you want to access the authentication, there is something called as Firebase _ auth. And for the storage purpose, there is another plugin. For machine learning, there is Firebase _ML _learning. I'm not really sure. So there are a bunch of plugins that Flutter itself is releasing, or the Flutter team is also releasing. So that's what we're going to try to do now. Make sure to add your Firebase core and your Firebase database, and then it's time to do a pub get. Let me quickly check. Yeah. All right, so time to do our pub get here. Just click on pub get and it will automatically pull these two libraries. It will pull the two important ones that are required for us. So that's going to be the first step. Now it's time to now check our app again. And like I've been saying, I want to remove all of this and make sure that it looks like the user is going to enter the data. So in order to do that, there is something called as a text input. That's going to be the probably the widget for getting text from the user. So we're going to be making use of that. Once you finish a pub get, it'll run in the process and things like that, and it'll just finish it, just get your dependencies and things like that. And once that is done, just go and add your first import statement. The first import statement that you're going to add is to say yeah, you're going to say from import package Firebase core. From the Firebase core, we're going to be importing the Firebase core dot. This is the first import. The next import you're going to do is just the import package from the Firebase database. We're going to say import the Firebase database dot. Right, so these are the two important ones that you're going to do. And once if you are able to do it successfully without any error, that means that your pubspec.yaml pulled it properly and your dependencies are proper in order. All right, so next step that I've been telling is to add an input controller or something called as a text input, and that way you can control how the user is entering the data. So instead of just giving it as a text field, I'm going to be now renaming it as text. I'm going to rename it as text field. And as soon as I give a text field, it will throw an error saying that I need to give something called as a controller. So you need to pass something called as a controller, and this controller is to just get the text that the user is entering. It will act as like a point, just like a listener, just to look at it and just give us data that we need, and you can access it at any point. So just go here to your screen one, and you need to create an object of something called like this. Final, I'll have it as assignment controller. I'll call it as assignment controller, and we just call it as input controller. It's called as text editing controller. So once you create an object of this, you can then pass your assignment controller to this space. So this way you will, whatever changes that are being written on this end or in this field, you can just say, for example, go to your on pressed, you can just say print dot text. You can get the value, you can access all of the things that are present inside it. All right, so that's what you can try to do. And you need to have access for other things as well, right? We have added for text input text field, and the one more important thing that the text field has is to have the text also. I think you can have text inside it. You can pass the text inside it. Controller is mandatory. Focus node, you can add the text input action. You can even add access like add assignment or assignment number. Right, let me quickly check what is the field for text field. Flutter. Oh, got it. So in order to add the text inside it, you need to use the decoration, basically decoration key, and you can add a decoration like say input decoration, and inside it you can add the text that you want. You can say label text, label text is assignment. All right, this is how you add it. Let's save this up, and you can see the application how it looks like on the right. Let me pull it up. Great. So it says that add the text, you can add the assignment, it'll come up right here. You can add the data and it'll work pretty fine. Similarly, I want to add for student number and the date of birth as well. So it's pretty simple. Just copy it and paste it and you can change it. Copy it and go here and paste it. And now voila, we have the student number. And make sure to pass a different controller. That is very, very important. You cannot pass the same controller for every text field. You need to have access to a different controller. So here again, I go and I'm going to be creating another new controller called as student number controller. I'll have the text editing controller. Right, create an object for that. Finally, you also need to have the date of birth controller. So date dob controller. All right, text editing controller, create an object for that. So voila, we have 3 controllers now. Make sure to add it to this also so that we can easily handle it. So make sure to pass this properly, student number controller, and this will be dob controller. All right, so voila, save it up and you can see for yourself how the 3 things span up right here. I'll just click on OK so that we can see how the application is looking. All right, so here you can see that it's saying bottom overflowed by 12 pixel. This is something that's very good with Flutter, meaning that instead of just breaking the application, it will just say that some widgets are not aligned properly and it's just pushing on the app. You need to make sure to reduce the size of this image, and as soon as you reduce the size of this image, it will just go away. For example, I'll just say that the size, the height of this should not be more than, for example, you can control it inside here itself. You need to control the size of the image. So I'll just say control the height of the image by just giving it only 50.0. The width should also be 50.0. All right, so if you do that, it'll just make sure to have a small image, and this will not throw a bunch of an error. So voila, that's what we wanted. We have the now assignment number is present. We can give the assignment number, we can give the student number. This should be the date of birth. So date of birth. All right, so that we have the way to get the input from the user, but how do you exactly now use your Firebase and store this information? So if you go back to your Firebase, there is nothing present here. Now what I want to do is to get the student number basically from here and use the student number as my key, and then have values as to the name of the student or the assignment number of the student and the date of birth of the student, so that I can understand it. That's what I want to save. So what I'm going to do now is to make use of this submit data button, and instead of just navigating to the second screen, I'm going to be doing something called as putting data or storing data. I'm going to create now a method called as storing data, and in this method I'm going to be writing my action on how to use the Firebase and store the data. Let me quickly check the yeah. Got it. So hopefully it's been clear so far. We have been doing bunch of stuff, but it's clear so far. All right. So hopefully Sumit, yeah, God, sorry for missing it out. I was not looking into the chat option. Great. So we have now the access to Firebase now from import statements here and import database here. We have now the access to the Firebase, and it's time to just look at how to connect it. The first step you're going to do is, once you have your editing controller, we're now going to be creating an object of the Firebase itself. How do you do that? Just say final Firebase something like this Firebase, and you're going to be creating the or taking the instance of the Firebase. So you just say Firebase database dot instance, and as soon as you get the instance of the Firebase, it means that at that point of time it will create an upstream, or it will connect with your Firebase and return only the instance of it, meaning that it's actually a design pattern. I'm going to be doing a class on design patterns on the Unacademy platform, so make sure to check that out. In that I'll explain exactly how instances work and what do like singleton pattern mean, and all of those sorts are going to be talking about that. So what this Firebase database.instance does is that it's creating a singleton reference. It is reducing the amount of information or reducing the amount of memory required to create an object, and once it creates an object, it will keep on storing that itself. So that's the whole idea behind this instance. And as soon as you've gotten the instance, the next thing you're going to do is inside our build method, we're going to be having a variable called as reference, and the reference can be obtained by doing Firebase dot reference. So you can call the method called as reference, and from the Firebase object it's able to get the current reference or the current DB that is being present. So it will just connect it to this DB. Now okay, you have understood, you're very clear on how this works and how this data can be used, but how do you now push this data, or how do you put the data in this section? So what you're going to do now is to do something called as a create action, and there are a bunch of 4 important actions that can be done as part of Firebase, and I'll talk about it probably in the next class in detail. But for now I just want to check if the Firebase was connecting right. In order to do that, I want to just test if I can put some data here and it's creating the data, and that is possible by making use of the reference that we had right now. And inside the on press, instead of even before I print, this is navigating the second screen, I want to do my first set action. So I'm just going to say ref dot child of, when I say reference, right? Oh, okay, we have an object of reference. I can have access to something called as a child. So what this child will do is that it will take an path to a variable or path to a data or the key, and we can pass any data inside it. I'm going to be passing my data from the student. Basically the student number is what I want to have as the key, right? So the student number, I'll go here, I'll say student number dot value, sorry, text, and whatever this data is coming after submit, I'm just going to take the text from the student number, and then I'm going to be setting the data. I'm just going to be setting the data as to the value. So value should be either it can be a text, it should be a text, but what I'm going to do now is to have it as the key value pair. So I'm just going to have it as a key, and I'm just going to have it I'm going to put it as a dictionary. So what dictionary I'm going to put is basically right this one. So I'm going to be having the student number is the key, so I'm going to be having the assignment number. I'm just going to say assignment number controller dot text, followed by I'm going to do the date of birth. I'm just going to say date of birth controller dot text. So this way I'm pushing the data of a JSON format inside this student number, which is going to be acting as my path. So save this up and open your application again. Just click on this. Okay. Now it's time to check if this is working fine. Okay, this is successfully loaded. Hopefully, yes, this is successfully loaded. Yes, just test it once again. Make some change and test it once again. It's trying to reload. Is it reloaded, completed? All right, the reload is completed, and I do not really worry about the bottom overload and stuff like that. So I'm going to first enter my assignment number. I just need to give a proper assignment number, right? I'll give it as assignment 1 2 3 4 5 or 5 5 6. This is going to be my assignment number. The student number has to be unique, so I'll just give it like something like this: 5465 1 2 3 4. This is going to be my student number, and my date of birth is 0101 1995, something like this. And I'll just click OK, and time to check if it is saving the data. Click on submit, and it will just say that no implementation for the method database reference set on the channel plugin. So it will not have return it to this space because of the first of a very important information that I missed on saying. So what we have done so far is to have a reference to the Firebase. We have connected to the Firebase and all of that. But even before doing that, we need to have an instance of the Firebase core created. We need to initialize the Firebase core. Only after we initialize the Firebase core will it be able to push the data and create the data. So that's going to be a very, very important one. So how do you do that is to just create an instance of that. So go to your main app or the void main, and even before you call your run app, we need to do await, just say await, and you just say Firebase dot initialize your application. So we're just telling the Firebase to initialize the app, and only then you're going to continue inside your application. So if you have an await, yesterday we saw you need to have an async, and this is going to be the first step. And in order to even call a function before run app is getting created, there is another important function that you need to call, which is called as widgets flutter binding dot ensure initialize. So basically we are just saying that make sure to initialize whatever is required and then call the run app. So this is the two important methods that you need to run or inside your void main, and after you do that, this should pretty much work fine. I'll just save this up again. Time to test it now. Go back. Okay, we have all the data present, fine. Just click on submit and we'll just check here if it's written or not. So is it written? Delays completed is fine, but what is it saying? Missing plugin exception, no implementation found for method database reference set on channel plugins.flutter. So it's saying that no implementation found for method. So I need to check why that is happening. So basically what we're doing is coming here and just saying reference dot child, and the child is going to be a text. So I'll just print this to see what is happening so that you know for sure. Okay, the data is coming fine, not a problem at all. Everything looks fine. The set, let's try this toString. Probably this is the issue that is having. The set works only on strings, so this should be the issue. Again, it's not throwing an error. No implementation found for method database reference. I'll try to now pass it as string only. I'll pass the information of assignment controller dot text. Save this up again, come back, try to submit this data. Unhandled exception, missing plugin exception, no implementation found for method database reference set on channel. Is it not writing still? Still not writing, so I need to find out why this is happening. What am I missing? I'm missing something, that is why this is not happening. It's saying missing plugin exception. All right, this is something that should be solved by this, is what these guys are telling. So what they are saying is to let me figure this out right away. Something that I did not expect. Super sorry about it. Check my pubspec. Is it fine? Pubspec is fine. Firebase core, Firebase database, both of them are there. And I do have in my main, I have the await Firebase initialize app, which is present as expected. So first thing first, let me stop this application and I'll build it from scratch again as a new one. Right, this should work fine. All right, so I think I found this. Is the reference equal to reference, or is it a method? Where exactly you're talking about? You're talking about this method here, what we are doing here. So what basically we are doing is we're just calling a reference of method. We are instantiating the Firebase's reference and initializing to another variable called as reference. So this is the reference that's going to control or give us access to methods like child, and inside that you can do set actions and things like that. In order to get to that space, or in order to access that, we need to first have an access to the Firebase database instance, and of that instance we can then do dot reference, and then we'll be able to access all the data inside it. So that's basically what is like. You can even rename it as ref or something like that. Usually what people do is just make sure to keep it as closest to what is happening so that it's easy for us to understand it. Does that clear your doubt? So what happens is that this is something that I should have expected properly. We are having everything on the hot reload section. So hot reload section, what usually does is that it just pulls the data on whatever was last modified and just pushes it and does all the stuff. But what happens is that since we have been having or making a lot of changes, especially in our inside our Android app build Gradle as well as a project Gradle, hot reload is not a solution. You need to completely stop the application and run the Gradle task once again from scratch. Only if you do that, then only all the methods that you've called here will probably get picked up. And that was the issue that I faced. So hopefully I'm expecting now that this will work pretty much fine. So you'll just test this thing out once again, and we should be able to figure out if it is saving the data to our real-time database, and then probably we will be successfully completing this. So what I'm expecting is to have the database send the name of the student number followed by the data inside it as the assignment number. So let's check it out. Go back here, go back. Okay, testing time. Just enter my assignment number. I'm going to enter my assignment number as 556677 or 66 again, and the student number needs to be unique, so I'll just call it as 5465 1234, and the date of birth should be 0101 1995 or something like that. All right, click on tick and submit data. So as soon as you submit data, what happens is that, okay, this should have worked fine. Yeah, awesome, right? So what is happening here is it's using the student number as the key, and also the data that we sent as the value, and it's putting it right here. So what we need to now do is to instead of just, so what exactly you're doing is using the reference and calling a child on it. So child is basically to create a key that is going to be acting as the main key. So if you again call this, if you want to again access the data inside it, you can just say child of that value and you'll be able to get the data. So instead of just setting assignment controller alone, I want to do something like this. I want to pass a dictionary, and I'm just going to say data like assignment number. I'm just going to pass this, followed by, I'm going to do something called as date of birth. I'm just going to say date of birth controller dot text. I'm just going to test if this thing works out fine. So go here, go back. So we have all the information, submit data. Does it work fine? Does it not throw an error? Okay, it does not throw any error. And as you see here, it is having a plus symbol now. It does not have a direct value. It has a plus symbol now. So click on this, and then you have inside it bunch of different data. So it is having the data like assignment number and assignment number that we are sending from here, which is what we wanted to do. From here we're sending some assignment number, and from here we are sending the date of birth and things like that. Now I'm just going to show you guys how real time this works. So right, let's change the assignment number now. I'm changing the assignment number to 5566, something like this, and the student number on the other hand will probably be again changed to something like this, and the date of birth is changed to something like this. So some random data. All right, click on tick, and click on submit data. You can see how real time it is. Now almost instantly this data is getting loaded and a new field is created, and there you have it. The new data is being shown inside it. Now let's say that you want to modify the data of the assignment number for this student number. So I'm going to be using the student number same, but changing the